Okay, having a look at Andrew's mesh here, there's been he's had some issues with retopology and getting the low and the high to match up. So I figured I would record a quick video about how I might approach retopologizing this. There's a few things to talk about here that are probably useful to everyone, so I figured it was a good one to record. So all I've done is I've deleted everything I don't need from the scene, grouped up the high poly, named all the parts, names that make sense, and combined the parts together that I want to bake together. So the handles are together, the main straps and these like rivets are together. The gems and the copper part and the copper part down here are just one piece. Cork's one piece and the glass is one piece. One other small thing I did was I added an extra edge just by extruding this edge just to make sure there was no visible gap where this glass meets the copper that's wrapped around it. Just wanted to make sure that there was not going to be any visible issue there. So the next thing to do is to start the retopology process. I've moved the main thing off the middle of the grid. What I'm going to do is start duplicating the parts and retopologizing them. Something a bit weird about this mesh is that it doesn't seem to cooperate with mesh reduce. So if we go to mesh reduce, it doesn't seem to work, even though it seems to be all quads. And I think it's mostly because the operation is getting confused by the edge flow we have, where these parts come out, even though it seems to be largely makes sense. Mesh reduce seems to work better on simpler shapes. So for example, something like this. Mesh reduce works on because it's all uniform quads. It's very easy. But for some reason, can't reduce this one. Whatever I do, it doesn't seem to listen. So we have a couple of options for this. We could either manually model a new mesh that copying this, or we could just delete a bunch of edges. It's going to depend kind of how fast you are at doing this sort of thing, which one's quicker for you. In this case, I think because we have these flat sides, we know we can basically just delete all the edges from those flat sides and leave, I don't know, maybe we could even just leave 3 on every corner. So we could find our 3 that we want to define the corner with. So this one, with these 3. Delete the ones next to them. And then we know we can just go along here and quickly delete everything. So let's find the 3 here. This one. Yeah, this one, and this one. So let's delete this one, and then we should be able to just it's going to be interesting to see what happens at the round parts here. It may just require that we do some manual triangulation on these parts. So I think what we'll do manually deselect all of these rings, and then we'll figure out what we're going to do around the circular parts afterwards. This thing is symmetrical, so let's just do half. Obviously, it's going to save us some time to do just half of it, because the time-consuming part is these bits. We're going to need to do triangulation coming off these, so we should only do it once and do it on one side and then mirror it across. So let's do that right now. Let's grab our top view, go into the top view, grab half, and make sure we actually got it right to the line, because we've got some very small polygons there, and delete. So remember, we had one on the other side and then this one, that was the 3 that was defining our corner. We want to make sure it's consistent all the way around. So now we can start deleting all these. Maybe we should have left 4 to define the corner, but we'll see. I think 3 is enough. So next thing to do is delete the horizontal edges we don't need. Starting to run into some edge flow problems here. So maybe it's time that we had a look at sorting out the round parts, the handle joints, whatever you want to call them. So we definitely don't need nearly as many edges as we have on here, right? Let's see. 40 edges. What would be a good number of edges? I would say even 20 was a bit high. If we deleted... Well, if we deleted every 3 and then left 1, we'd end up with 10. Maybe we should do that. Let's go 1, 2, 3, delete. 1, 2, 3, delete. Because we don't, the lower poly this part is, the easier it's going to be to link up all the edges in triangulation. Keep that 1, 1, 2, 3. So hopefully, right, if we take, we're making a cycle of 4, 1, and then the 3 we delete. We should perfectly get back to the starting point if I've done my maths correctly. You'll notice I opened the calculator, but I didn't use it. And I was right. Who knew? Dividing by 10 was so powerful. So we've already got the bottom started here because these edges were linked up. So now we just work from this point. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Rinse and repeat. Okay. So now we're getting somewhere. I think we keep this edge going around because this is going to be the one we link all the topology up to, and we'll do the same on the bottom as well. Just going to delete history and freeze transformations because I noticed it was a bit laggy when I was using target weld. That's usually a sign that your scene is getting a bit heavy. Oops, misclick there. Okay. So we pretty much don't need any of the edges on here because they're not changing the silhouette at all. Same at the top. And then we've got to decide how many we keep here. Probably just 1. Now, personally, I mean, this is too late now, but I wouldn't recommend actually connecting these parts, like, because they're basically, it's just there's a tiny bit of curvature where they connect, but in general they're just sticking out. So you could have just had them sticking in, but this is the way you've done it now, so this is the way that we'll work with it. It's going to require a bit more work to retopo, but that's fine. That is absolutely fine. I've definitely messed up this one. These two shouldn't exist. 10, yeah. Must have just misclicked when deleting them. And for some reason, there's also some messy geometry here. I'm just going to fix it by eye. This might be a time to use edge slide. Transform constraint edge. Snap that up so it's level. So the plan is, once we got the bottom done, that we won't need any of this crap down here, so I'm not going to tidy it up. We do have the slight issue of this corner, though, and what's going to happen to it. Start by getting rid of all that. I think we just bring everything in, bring that down, square that off. And this is going to be the point we use for these ones. So hopefully we can just move them down. Edge slide should still be on, so I can just move this down, snap it to level with this. And we should be able to do the same here, just to get some tidier geometry. Grab both of those and triangulate. And we've got a quad there, so that's fine. Then all of this, let's go around that first. A lot of mess in here. Just clean it all up. Edge slide is on there. I'm just tidying things up by hand a little bit. So lastly, there's this problem down here, and I think the best way is just to delete those and then triangulate this. So we do get some kind of nasty long thin triangles there, but can't see another way around it apart from maybe having an extra edge going all the way down, but it's going to eat up some polygons. This way is largely efficient, right? And then we can collapse these edges if we so wish to save even more. Just looking at which ones start changing the curvature, nothing changes until here, basically. So those can go. Edge slide is still on, which is helping us. We're now going to turn it off. Could use surface, actually. Let me just slide the points along the surface. That might work. And then for these, because I had to kind of fix this up a little bit by hand, they're sticking out a bit further than they should be. I'm just going to... I know what it's supposed to be like, right? It's supposed to be a clean transition to this flat face, so I can just scale them in by eye. Once again, we're baking onto this, so it doesn't have to be super, super accurate. Connect, 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 connect. And that's looking pretty good. So let's start cleaning up down here. Do we have really, yeah, really tight edges down there? Get rid of basically all of them. Something like that. Ah. Okay, there we go. Our edge loop was messed up by the triangle there, but that's fine. Just manually sorted it out. We can collapse these, save more polygons. Collapse edge. So now we do have this edge in the middle, but we can yeah, the edge, the silhouette doesn't change. We can delete this one because that's a quad. Well, we don't have to. But what we can do is we can weld this one down and this one down. Because this edge isn't changing the shape, it's just there to link up the geometry from these parts. So now we have a quad here, 1, 2, 3, 4. And we don't have to worry about this shading because remember, we're baking the surface quality from this onto this, so we don't have to worry if the shading's a little bit off. Kind of like we did at the bottom, but we won't use collapse edge. We can weld these edges up to here. Careful, like select the right vertices there. And I'm just going to connect these as well, just for good measure. "900 polygons, but we still got a lot to delete up here." Check from the side so we can see what's changing the silhouette. This is really not doing that much. Maybe something like this. So I'm just taking 3 at a time. Two there. 1, 1, 2. Just 1, I think. Obviously, it's a judgment call. You can delete more or less depending on how you see the curvature change when you remove edges. Probably don't need this one because it's so kind of so tucked inside the mesh there. Similarly, I feel like we can save polygons in here as well with a bit of something like this. And no one's going to see if there's a bevel, like where it's right under the cork there. So doing that should save us a few, and every little helps. Similarly, maybe we could even collapse the edges down there, but we're at 460. I feel like that's pretty good. Same thing down here. You know, every small saving we can make, we should make. So if by that same logic, doing this and having the triangle there, but we could even link straight up and down like that. I'm going to actually collapse those edges into one edge. And this one, this one. The long, thin triangles aren't ideal. Just in terms of optimization, they can cause some visual bugs, but I think in this case, it's not too bad. Shading looks fine. We're down to 430 polygons. Yeah, I think that's fine. That's going to be like 860 for the whole bottle, and then the rest is fairly simple. Maybe the straps are going to be the hardest thing other than this, but we can always come back to this piece and reduce the topology, the poly count more if we feel like we need it because other parts are too expensive. But getting this down to 860 is pretty good. Just make sure it's all merged. We can probably get rid of some more of these edges if we need to, but let's not do it just now. So I'm going to move this out of the group and name it glass low. I don't want to move it above the cameras though. So this strap. One thing that I think I mentioned is that these low relief rivets, they don't need to be separate because they don't, we don't need to actually have them on the low because they're just going to get printed on into the normal map. They're going to look, they don't have much silhouette to them, so I think they're fine to just bake on. It's going to save a lot of polygons. So what I'm going to do is select everything and then deselect the leather part and delete all of the rivets. I can find an example actually from the previous one of the previous classes. Hard to see, these are quite small, but this bottle had all of these bolts on, and none of them actually exist in the geometry on the low poly. They're all baked on. So hopefully we get a chance to demonstrate that in a sec. So this strap. This should be all quads. So maybe we can reduce it. One other thing is, if your liquid, your glass is going to be opaque, we don't need the inside faces, right? We can just delete all the inside faces. We just need everything beyond. Ah, interesting. How much symmetry do we have? Here's my concern, because I know you've added some kind of distortion to some of these, so they're a little bit different from each other. So we can't do one side and then mirror it. We actually have to do the whole thing. Not the end of the world, but it is going to take some time. I do want to stress, though, that we don't need all this stuff. So it seems like the geometry is consistent, and we can just delete it by doing this, which is good. So I'm going to make all these selections. This is going to save us loads of polygons, not having the inside faces. So what I've done is these parts are now separate, right? So I can select everything, deselect the main part, and delete all those. We're still left with a tiny bit of nonsense down here, but we can select all of these and then, oops, grow, 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 grow. Like so, and I'm leaving an interior edge to stick into the mesh so we can't ever see under the strap. Looks pretty good, so let's delete history and freeze transformations and see if reduce works on this part. It does not, annoyingly. Well, let's do it the old-fashioned way. Nice thing about cylindrical subdivided meshes is we do get this easy point at the bottom left over to use as a selection center for retopology, basically. Big reduction already. We basically don't need any of the geometry in the middle of the straps, so we can just manually grab all of those. But we do need the geometry to support the edges, and we're going to need some of the geometry to support the, going up the mesh, because there's some distortion, intentional distortion, to make it look like leather on some of these parts. Once again, we're going to pick our edges that define the corners, and I think it's going to be these three. So everything else, we're going to start deleting. 1, 2, 3, 4, like so. Not that one, that one. And 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. And 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Do need to check what's happening on the back of the mesh when I'm deleting these, though. A little bit to sort out up there. That's the corner, then that one. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Same again. Thankfully, this is all consistent, so it's quite easy to work with. Nice, okay. Good start. Tell you what I'm going to do. This part's really annoying, right? So why don't we select this entire edge loop, hit delete, delete all this, and we'll just extrude in to make that part new later. We want to collapse these down to one edge. Firstly, we can delete all this. Get out of here. How many edges we keep on the edge? This edges on the edge sounds meaningless. Basically how many bevels we keep here is really up to us. I think delete one edge and then collapse the edges so we have basically a 3-edge bevel, right? We have 1, 2, 3. So what I did there was deleted the middle, selected the edge ring. Remember the ring is parallel edges, and collapsed it. And that should go all the way from the top to the bottom. Very nice. So let's just do that all the way around. Already done this side apparently. And this side too. Collapse edge. Music on. Okay. Getting somewhere. Looking at the silhouette. Do they do anything? Not really. I'm trying to think of the quickest and easiest way. Basically, I want to collapse. I want to do this, right? All the way up. But that's going to be a lot of manual work if we actually do it by hand. So I'm trying to see if there's a way we can select everything and then merge them. Perhaps because these are the closest verts together in the whole top part, we could go into side view and we can use a merge by threshold. Let's see, edit mesh, merge. Oh, look at that, genius. So what did we do there? Well, these vertices of these 3 close together edges were the only ones within 0.31 in this case units of distance from each other. So none of the other vertices got merged, but those ones did. That saved us a lot of time. What I will do now, I feel like we do, I was going to say we could merge these across, but we actually do need to define this curvature here, so maybe we'll leave it. We'll see how we're doing for polygons as we continue further into this process. What happens if we delete that? We probably do need that one, as much as I hate to say it. But maybe we can do the same thing again. Like this. Let's get it really precise. I mean, it kind of works. It's definitely something that needs doing. Yeah, why not? Then we can just clean up. Got to make sure you deselect the vertices you already have selected before you use target weld. Just tidying. Getting rid of the edges we don't need. We got to remember how small this is, right? We're never going to be as close as we are now in this view to this part of the mesh. So best to save the polygons here, in my opinion, in my humble opinion. But just keeping the triangles that hold those edges where we need them. Here, for example, it merged the wrong way, so we just need to connect. Okay. That's weird. Weird result. We just add a new vertex in there and weld that one. We don't need this triangle. Other than that, deselect and weld. God, there's a lot of sides on this thing. Okay, we're finally there. And now we're just going to look at which of these we need. No, no, no. There's no real like sideways distortion on this part, so we need to keep that one. Probably keep that one because this one starts bending. If we delete that one, basically you can just delete them. And if you see a big change in the silhouette, like it's not a big change, but it's a change, then you can decide that you needed that one. This is largely straight. Leave one. The distortion's down here. Okay. We should probably sort out the bottom face next. Because this is still high poly. So, this is the bottom of the mesh. We're hardly going to see this bit down here, so you may notice sometimes I use target weld and then immediately undo. That's because it sometimes remembers the vertex selection you had before you picked up the tool, and then it welds like a million vertices in. It's very annoying. Just Control Z. Click outside the mesh and then do it again. So main thing I'm doing here is welding to the corners, breaking the edge flow, and then hopefully we can just delete everything inside like this. So I'm selecting the faces and I'm going to convert selection to edges, and then I'm just going to grow my edge selection till it reaches where I want it to. Deselect the ones I want to keep. Went a little bit too far on some of those. Looks good. Control plus delete. Got some weird faces left over, but what is that? Is that a hole? Tell you what, delete the face. Fill hole. Okay. Keep these ones. Lose these three. 2,700. We got all these ones to delete down here. We can decide what we're doing up here based on what the poly count is left as. It's basically straight. Keep all those. Get rid of that one. Basically all of these. Nothing changed, right? Tiny change. Keep that one. Keep that one. Okay. At the end of the day, even if we make it mismatch a little bit, we can always just move the edges we do have to match the high. That's the saving grace of these techniques. So it doesn't matter, you know, I'm not saying be careless and delete everything, but if we see, we compare our low to our high and there's an obvious difference, we can just either add a loop where we need it and manually move it. $2,000. We still got all these to delete. Got to keep that one. One, two, one, two, one. Keep that one. Keep that one. Basically doing the same thing again and again. All the way up the mesh. Maybe it would have been quicker to quad draw this one. Who knows? Just need to delete them all. I feel like we probably still have too many edges on these ones down here, but what can you do? Well, you can delete them, but you've got to make a judgment call. A lot of these are basically almost straight sections, and they just have one edge that's kind of defining the curvature that you want to keep. See, this one has some curvature to it that we do want to preserve. So we want to be careful which ones we get rid of. See, that one was holding the curvature up there. 1,470. We could probably get this lower. But let's just compare. To reach this one. It's close enough. Maybe I would add one in there. Looks good. Looks very good, actually. Okay. We can maybe remove some down there if we get the chance. Probably maybe a smart thing to do would be to collapse edges, because that tends to preserve the curvature, etc. Because you're not actually deleting the supporting edge, you're just kind of averaging between two of the edges. Basically, merge to center. I should probably do this with the high poly mesh on top so I can compare my high and low, but that was a big change, too big. Okay, whatever. Like I said, we have the potential to get it lower, 1,400 basically. One other thing we could do, oops, is that, but we do lose some curvature. Let's leave it for now. If we need to reduce it, we can reduce it. One thing I forgot is that we deleted the top, right? So I need to find this and start manually putting a new edge in there. I'm extruding, but then I'm not using the extrusion tools to actually move it. I am just manually scaling. Tuck it inside the glass. Like so. Looks good. Looks very good. So right now we're at 2,300. The other parts should be pretty simple. Oh, I just realized actually this this thing covers up a bunch of the neck, so we can definitely, not all of them. And for some reason, it's not a good sign there. Oof. How did that happen? Okay, easy fix. Same thing we did on the top. These are way closer together, so edit mesh, merge. And we just keep going until they snap together. So 0.1 seems to have got them all. But yes, we can basically get rid of some edges under here. Because it's going to be hidden under the thing, right? And we can do this. Oh, God. I'm hoping these parts don't show under the copper. I'll have to check. Perfect. And in fact, if all of this is hidden, God, why does it do that? We'll see. That's what we want, basically, just these top ones. So that's down to 600, basically 660 now. Really nice and low. I'm going to delete. I feel like actually the gems stick out enough that they deserve some geometry. We don't need this inside geometry. Reduce just ain't working. Once again, this is going to be largely the same. We're going to keep 3, and then we're just going to delete. I don't know, let's go every 3. 1, 2, 3, and hope it actually fits. It does not. 1, 2. That works. Get rid of every 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. Basically doing what the reduce tool would have done if it was working on this file. It's just a bit more time consuming. To be honest, we don't need those. One, 2. These 3, and then 1, 2. And then I'm just going to delete everything in between. 1, 2. One, 2, 3. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. Easiest way to remember it when you're working on something symmetrical. I'm hoping these gemstones are symmetrically arranged around the mesh. So I'm going to keep just this one. Mesh, separate. I don't know what's going on. My reduce tool just seems to be completely broken. Something's wrong with this as well. It seemed there was some double vertices in there because I couldn't select the edge loop. But this is basically a hard-edged polygon shape. It hasn't been subdivided, so we don't really need to do much to get it low poly. We just do that. I believe it's 38 tries to have it like this. Yeah, it's actually slightly more optimal to have two edges like that. We can save our polygon if we collapse these edges. They're tucked inside the mesh anyway. 34, that's fine. Make sure we actually got it right. Let's go 30 degrees. Yeah, because it's 60, right? These parts will be baked on fine. We don't need to keep them. Oof, what happened down here? The easy fix is just... Is that edges to center? Yeah, merge edges to center. There we go. Doing the same thing still. It's a little bit more complicated because this isn't doesn't have symmetry on all sides. But basically, I'm just leaving 3 edges on every corner and deleting all the other ones. See, this one's wider than this one, but should look fine. Keep those 3. Merge to center. Triangulate. Looking at the edge there to see what those edges were doing for the silhouette. The answer was nothing. I'll leave that little bevel on there. $800, but that's including the top. 3,000 total. We're going to quad draw the handles probably. So let's just throw the cork on there. Easy peasy. 144. It's kind of high. 120. I don't want to remove any more on the radius. Should be fine. I mean, the thing is, if the bottle's opaque, we could just get rid of those. Because we're never going to see the cork. So right now we're at 3,000. And assign Lambert 1. And assign a new Lambert. Can we ever see behind the straps? Maybe we do need to have it filled. We'll see, I guess. Because there's some camera angles where you could maybe see behind the strap, but for the most part, you're never going to... Like, you get a tiny millimeter. Thing is, if it is the case, all we're going to need to do is like select, I don't know, a selection of edges, like so. Like so. I want the actual inside edge. We would just select, I don't know, like here to here. And then the same on the opposite side, here to here. And then we would just... Can I... Oh, it's the wrong edge, that's why. Oh. Okay, there we go. And then we would just do something like this. Just Bridget Jones' Diary. So that's an easy fix if there is a problem. So I'm going to just leave it. Seems the way it's going, it seems like we're going to have polygons to spare. So if it is an issue, we can use our remaining polygons to fill up the back of the leather straps. Because there's still places we could save polygons, like down here. That was an N-gon. Yeah, okay. So the handles, how do we do the handles? They are the same, which is great. That means we can just do one. I think we quad draw it. Or just a test. How many sides do we think? I think something above 8 is a safe bet. 12. Let's go for 9. It's because something about 9. I feel like it's one of the better numbers you can get away with for a rounded shape. 5 would be like the bare minimum. So basically what I'm going to do, first I'm going to fix my rotate tool, is I'm going to just extrude this along. We could even extrude along a curve if we were being extra, but I'm going to extrude it along, keep it a little bit bigger than the mesh, the base mesh. So select all the faces, deselect the sides. So I just have this tip, this cap, end cap selected. And we're just going to start mimicking the shape. This is just going to be much easier than quad draw since it's kind of a uniform shape. I don't want to spin it around. I don't want to end up with a twist in the edge flow yet. It's not the end of the world if we do have a twist. But I'm going to show you a nifty little trick. So keep extruding it along. Rotate manually the end cap so it matches the kind of flow of the direction that you're taking this. And it's important that we get this bit to match at the end as close as we can. like so. And the same up here. Scale it. So this is 144, so I'm going to add, basically going to add an extra division in all the segments. And then I'm going to make this thing live. And I'm going to grab my edge loops in vertex mode. So 2 vertices, you can just double click select to select them like so. I'm going to move them slightly and they should snap to the surface of the mesh we're working with. So this is like the lazy man's quad draw, right? We've defined the shape first, and then we're using make live to snap it in place afterwards. And I'm just moving it until the vertices find a reasonable point along the wrapping. So we want them to be probably at wider points of the wrapping. In this case, I'm rotating it so that it matches the flow of that piece of leather. And the same thing down here. Move it down, rotate it. We want it to be on the outside. Okay. So that's our low poly handle. I think that's going to be good enough. So I'm going to turn off make live really quickly. One thing I'm going to do is just bevel here so we have a nice... hopefully we can get a successful bake of this copper part. Onto here. And the same down the bottom, obviously. Although we could probably get away without doing it at the bottom just because it's going to be so hidden in comparison. Squash it down. Hold. Because I have step snap on, I'm going to hold J for free rotation. So rotation without step snap. Just mirrored this part. Delete the handles. Oops. Yeah. Mesh display, soften edge. I'm going to assign my new material to them. I just want to see them in gray. So we are at 3,600. That's probably ready to bake. So we can test, right? What was this part called? Copper. Glass low straps. Oh, we're missing the straps middle. This one. This one's pretty much ready. Just delete a few edges. Keep 3. What do you reckon? Keep 3 and delete all the rest. It seems like it was quicker to deselect the ones we want to keep than to select the ones we want to get rid of. Get out of here. 288. What I'm going to do is order the things the same way in both groups for my own sanity. Problem there needs to be called low. Straps low, handles low, copper low. Delete history for each transformations, delete all those selection sets. So that's probably ready to go. The fact that we have 1,100 polygons to spare suggests to me that it would be wise to bridge inside all of these straps. It's going to be a bit of an annoying job, but you can probably do it if you're smart. Just find an edge that's easy to select. Wow, that's not what I was going for. There we go. So that's going to add 38 triangles. Oh, it's not going to add anything. It's cheap. Cheap, cheap, cheap. So I'm wondering if we could... wondering if there's a way we could automate this, but I don't think there is. It's just going to require zooming and carefully selecting. Bridge. And the same again. Come on, stop misclicking. Fiddly. It's a fiddly little job, but it's because I accidentally select the outside edge, that's why. You know, it might even be quicker to like separate the top, separate the bottom, bridge them all, because you could just double click select and then attach them all back together and merge them, but I'm almost there now, so. Is that the inside edge? Yes, it is. Misclick, misclick. God damn, it's so annoying. Okay, we're so nearly there. Just double click. He's done it. He's done it. Okay. So the final poly count is 4,000. Still got like a 900 polys to work with. But we don't need them. Don't need them. There's nowhere really we need to add geometry as far as I'm aware. It looks good to me. Sometimes it's worth scaling the low poly out slightly just because occasionally the deletion of edges means that the low poly ends up a little bit smaller. But in this case, I don't think we need to. The tolerance is super close. I think we're going to be absolutely fine for baking. So everything's named. Really, we should do the UVs properly. But didn't see what that error was. Oh, what is the non-manifold geometry? Interesting. It's telling me there's non-manifold geometry every time it lays it out, which means it's probably something the automatic thing is doing, but we can have a look through after. This is just to test whether the bake works. And I'd like to check whether I'm recording. That would have been bad if I'd been doing it for all this time without recording. We are recording, thankfully. So we're probably going to see some weird seams and some weird errors because the UVs are so bad. But I just want to check that this low poly is close enough to the high to work. So I'm going to export this as Andrew Low. We've got to make sure they're in the same place in the world, remember? So we're going to put this one on top. Just double check the names. They all look fine. Andrew High. Andrew. Where did I export those to? Ah. This one. Looks good. Big mesh maps. 2K. Gonna browse for the high. Gonna just turn these up to like 0.02. It's usually where I start. Match by mesh name. Basically a perfect bake. So let's pick from the ID map, texture this up really fast. I have a bunch of, I basically have all the materials you're using that I've made for my own projects. Add a black mask, add a color selection. And we'll make both these parts copper. Oof. Those colors are too similar to the black, so the ID map's getting confused. I'm just gonna add paint and fill by mesh. Okay. Leather. Add color selection. Copper is way too shiny. So I've already proved the bake works. I'm just testing some stuff out. You know how it is. Once again, the color of the leather and the parts of the engraving in the ID map are too close together. So this leather color selection is messing with the engraving. So I'm just going to use fill by mesh and make sure that that is not going to have leather on it. I'm going to grab another lever, like a normal material, and I'm going to add edge. I think there's a fabric edge wear. Ooh, that looks cool. It's really picking up the detail on the handle. And I'm just going to add height to this with a fill layer. Only in height. This wants to be, yeah, lower than the main level of the leather. Minus 0.1. This is going to look really cool. Where is my glass layer? Oh, we want to make sure that these parts are also copper. And then we just want to add cork. Just going to use plywood. Lazy. Can I? Okay, weird, wasn't working. Very nice. So yeah, this is obviously a 30-second texturing job, but that's going to work out really well. So hopefully that was helpful. It was quite a challenging one to retopo just because mesh reduce wasn't working, which takes a lot of the manual labor out of the retopo by deletion. I'm not sure why. I think it's something to do with my Maya actually, as I had the issue earlier today. I thought it was to do with Andrew's mesh, but that may not be the case. Either way, all it meant was that I had to manually delete more edges to get the same result. But hopefully that shows you a few different ways that you can approach retopology. And the final result we got looked like this. 4,000 polygons. Baked perfectly, first try. Ready for texturing.